Welcome back, everybody. How's everyone doing for the Sunday live stream? Good to see everybody here. David, Ralph, Nick, Pete, what's going on? David, you got more snow coming? We were supposed to get snow, I think they were talking about it tomorrow night, maybe. I don't think it's in the forecast anymore, but I'm beyond over it. It's just super windy. You'll probably hear it today on the stream. Super high winds today. Looks like tomorrow as well. And Tuesday we've got a high of, I think, 28. So not looking forward to that. The warm weather showed up and it's been great. And then classic Midwest, Ohio. Why do people say Midwest for Ohio? That's always been, as long as I've lived, people have always considered Ohio Midwest. We're further to the east than the direct middle of the U.S. Can anyone explain that for me? It is what it is. What's going on? Pushed ISO, how are we doing today? We're doing tired today. We've been doing some spring cleaning today. Which has been good. We've been clearing out a bunch of just junk and things not needed in the garage and outside the barn and the driveway, and just getting rid of all of the things that we've said, okay, we're going to get rid of this when the snow and everything clears. And finally made a run into the shop. Thankfully, we've got multiple big dumpsters at the shop, and my boss said, yeah, bring it on in. So took a whole truckload of junk in today and got other stuff set aside for donations and things like that. But it feels good to get some spring cleaning. But I'll be honest, I was ready to take a nap when we were all done with it. So we're hanging in there, though. I got the Diet Coke, I got the fridge cig here, so we're gonna get through it. 3 seasons in a week. That's the truth. Pete, we have all 4 seasons here in New Hampshire. Martin. Hey, Matt, Mr. IKEA from a gray and sad weather day here in Stockholm. We've got some sunshine at least today, but just crazy, crazy winds. So I'm going to try to get out and shoot as much as I can this week. Matter of fact, I've got a new delivery that just came in for a video. Share what I've got here in just a second. It's a big old lens. I thought we would kick things off here in just a minute with Skin and Grove by Chris Killip. We've possibly looked at it on stream before, but lately, as I've been kind of getting back to my usual of just sticking with 35mm black and white, one camera in the bag, just my M6, that's all I've been taking with me as I've been out and about. Actually, I did load up the Nikon F2 that Don sent in that we opened up, I think, last week. I've got that F2 loaded up with HP5 and a 50mm in the bag, and I've got that with me. I want to put a couple rolls through that, as well as this one right here. This is a Canon A1 that has been just kicking around in my toolbox back here for years. This, I believe, was sent in by Jared Sanchez. I've had this for years, and I don't think I've ever actually used it, but I'm going to put a roll through it just to try it out, and then I'm going to give this away to someone in the Discord, one of the channel members, someone who has been wanting to shoot film but hasn't had time or money to pick up a 35mm. I figured this would go to a better home since I haven't used it. It's just been sitting here. And I've been messing around with it, just kind of testing everything out. I put a fresh battery in there. But it seems like it would be a great starter camera for somebody because you have aperture priority or shutter priority or full program or fully auto with this 50mm f1.8. Seems like it would be a great lens and camera for somebody to get started with on their film journey. So Nick, actually, in the Discord, one of the channel members, he mentioned that he had some film that he would like to donate to that cause, and we'll get somebody set up with a new film setup, set up with a new setup. We'll get somebody going with some film soon. So excited about that. I do want to put a roll through it just to kind of make sure everything is working good. Since I never have used it, I just don't want to send a bum camera off to somebody. But I feel like it would be a good starter camera, so I figured that would be much better use than what I would get with it just sitting here in the toolbox. Let's see. David says it's called the Midwest because of antiquated understanding of the geography of the continent. It's just legacy naming, and we didn't get updated patch notes. That makes sense. I like Great Lakes region more personally. Yeah, Great Lakes region fits. Oh, hell yeah. Pete's going to throw in some film along with it. I'm thinking the camera. We'll throw in some film. I'm sure I've got a small shoulder bag or something that could go with it, and we could just make a nice little kit to give to somebody, one of the channel members over in the Discord. So we'll see what happens there. Let's take a look at Skin and Grove by Chris Killip, though. This is, as I mentioned, I've been kind of getting back to what I normally always prefer, just one camera, black and white film, and this, I don't know necessarily this was 35 millimeter. This could have been maybe 6x9 or something in medium format, but really, really great book. 82 to 84 is what we're looking at here time-wise. I believe we've looked at it on stream before, but there's a good chance some of you haven't seen it. Really, really great book. Don, what's up? Don's in the chat. Says Canon A1's a great camera. It was equal to the Nikon FE2 back in the day. That makes sense. I know around that time when cameras started having more, automation involved, made really good starter cameras. I'm going to go ahead and read this here since it's not too long. The village of Skin and Grove lies on the northeast coast of England, halfway between Middlesbrough and Whitby. Hidden in a steep valley, it veers away from the main road and faces out onto the North Sea. Like a lot of tight-knit fishing communities, it could be hostile to strangers, especially one with a camera. Now then is the standard greeting in Skin and Grove, a challenging substitute for the more usual hello. The place had a definite edge, and it took time for this stranger to be tolerated. My greatest ally in gaining acceptance was Leslie Holiday, Lesso maybe, the most outgoing of the younger fishermen. Lesso and I never talked about what I was doing there, but when someone questioned my presence, he would intercede and vouch for me with, "He's okay." This simple endorsement was enough. I last photographed in Skin and Grove in 1984 and didn't return for 30 years. When I did, I was shocked by how it had changed, as only one boat was still fishing. For me, Skin and Grove's sense of purpose was bound up in its collective obsession with the sea. Skin and Grove fishermen believed that the sea in front of them was their private territory, theirs alone. Without the competitive nature that came with fishing, the place seemed like a pale reflection of its former self. When you're photographing, you're caught up in the moment, trying to deal as best you can with what's in front of you. At that moment, you're not thinking that a photograph is also, and inevitably, a chronicle of a death foretold. A photograph's relationship to memory is complex. Can memories ever be made real, or is a photograph sometimes the closest we can come to making them seem real? And this is Chris Killip's words from 2020. M. Thayer, maybe? I've never seen that book. Well, you're in for a treat. This is a great one. Really, really great book. I've been wanting, I've been itching to find something to spend a lot of time with in terms of, for a project. Not necessarily specifically with a book in mind or anything like that. Just wanting to find something new to kind of obsess over, with the camera. People out fishing on the dock, out in the water. David says, I love these more stout, wide format for books. I don't know what it is. We've talked about it a little bit recently, the shape and the aspect ratio of the book and how it can lend itself to the photos. It definitely fits the feeling. I think this sort of wide landscape of looking out into the sea, and even in the town of Skin and Grove, these kind of wide views of the area, it fits that format really well. Hunter, what's going on? Thanks for joining us. Glad you caught another stream. There's a little bit of context. That's another thing we've talked about a little bit in recent streams where we've talked about the context or lack thereof for certain photos and how much it adds. There's always just a little brief bit of context right here on the opposite page. This says an early picture of Lesso with long hair standing in the boat. Looks like this right here would be Lesso. Let me raise this up a little bit too. Cleaning the nets. Love this one here with these lines. Everyone kind of scattered throughout the frame. You got the dog over here and over here. Looks like a baby stroller here. A little crate full of crabs in the wagon. Boat repairs. It's interesting seeing like some punk culture represented with the leather jackets and mohawks on some of these guys. Just simple observing, you know, like a fly on the wall. That's a fun one. Some puppies. Looks like they're nursing here. Baby crawling around. You can even see up here on written on this door, you've got the Anarchy A, and it says punk right there. What's up, Ian? How we doing? Greg? Sconebone? How we all doing? It says there this photo and this one here, collecting winkles. Anyone know what a winkle is? Hey, what's going on? We're looking at Skin and Grove by Chris Killip. Really, really good book. Think I might be too close to focus there. There you go. Chris Killip, Skin and Grove. Yeah, you got to peep the fits here. Feels similar to what he was saying in the introduction of the book. In terms of the memories there, these really do have that sort of like taking you back in time sort of feeling. Just the look and feel of everything from the outfits to the activities going on. Lesso with his gun and his dogs. It's a great photo there. I love the way the shape of the mountain there kind of wraps around with where the dogs are, where he is in the frame. Charmin, usually got to pay extra for that. I swear I did when I first read it. I thought it said they were collecting Winkies, and I said, well, hey, hold on. Wait a minute. Alex, what's going on? Being a fly on the wall is always more inspiring when the environment is stimulating too. Books are infinitely more inspiring than screens. That's why we're all here, but I'm keen to shoot. I feel that. I don't really find that level of interest or engagement when I'm looking at anything on a screen, whether that be, social media, Instagram, scrolling through there, or just consuming the work in general on screen. It's just a different experience. Periwinkle snail, that would make sense. I'm waiting for this one photo in particular. There's a little bit of context given, and it's heavy. The ocean is so terrifying to me too. I think that's another reason I enjoy this so much. Seeing people so immersed in it, and it's something that just is never not terrifying to me. Charmin, got a ZF, now just need good weather. I heard that. Enjoy the ZF, that's a fun one. There's another photo of this guy that's super good in this book. I think I've talked about it before. I might have shared it. I bought this book at Baltimore Photo Space when I was there a couple of years ago for the Surveyor book release party we did. And a guy who grew up in Skin and Grove happened to stop by the shop that day and was telling us all about the people in the photos. He knew some of the people that were in these photos. Really, really small world. It was crazy. There it is. That's the one. Yeah, Beaver. That's his name. Beaver taking in the early morning sun. It's so good. Fly undone in the pants. It's so good. Oh, here it is. So first I'll share the photo. And the context here, it says Simon Coltis being taken to sea for the first time since his father David drowned. Oh, man. Just devastating. People are ripping around on their snowmobiles because the plows aren't hitting the residentials. Dang, you guys must have really got hit then. Sorry if I've asked before, but I've seen a book, Faces of the North or have I seen a book? Faces of the North by Ragnar Axelsson. The Icelandic fishing sweaters reminded me. That sounds familiar, so maybe that sounds really familiar. I feel like that's a book maybe my buddy Castle told me about, something that he saw online. That sounds really familiar. That would be interesting, though. I haven't seen it, though. Yeah, it's a heavy photo. And again, the context. I mean, the kid's expression there, he looks really down, really somber. But just that one line of context gives it so much more weight. Saturday lunchtime queue at the Skin and Grove Fish and Chip Shop. Kids here in the window. I like that one a lot. This one here feels similar to something you would see in a Sage Sawyer book as well. Love that one. Talked to my parents just a bit ago, and they're bracing for a snowstorm tonight. I'm hoping we don't get any snow. It's going to be bitter cold on Tuesday. I'm really hoping we don't have any snow on top of that, but there we go. Working class, Iceland fishermen, and farmers' portraits. The cover photo tells you everything you need to know. I'll look out for that one. That's probably one I would enjoy. Whip It with his new LP, Punk and Disorderly. You can see he's holding a copy of his record right there. Super cool. Hey, what's going on, Wayne? Good to see you. Mrs. Trotton, Skinnin Grove's nursery school teacher with her class. Photographer Ian McDonald teaching his art class. I like this one a lot. Seeing these two guys working on this wheel repair with the two kids looking on. Probably these two were in very similar shoes growing up in a community like that, you know, where it's sort of the tradition of the whole community. Swimmers trying to get warm, standing around the fire. Middle of a rainstorm. Got people out here at the ice cream truck. That's a great photo there. All of these are great, but books like this this is what makes me think, oh yeah, I'm totally content never shooting color again. Always gravitated towards black and white, but when I see work like this, I'm like, yeah, I'm not missing any color whatsoever. Everything just feels so right. And then here we have remembering Richard Noble, age 17, David Coltis, age 36. They drowned off Skinnin Grove on the 22nd of March, 1984. and then Lesso, his friend, age 26, and David Henson, age 13, drowned off Skinnon Grove on the 29th of July, 1986. Beautiful book. Skinnon Grove by Chris Killip. I'm not sure if this one is like readily available online. I've had it for a couple of years now, but always one that I come back to when I'm in that mood to just look at my kind of black and white, the kind of stuff that always makes me want to get out and shoot. This is the kind of stuff. This, Sage Sawyer, Mark Steinmetz, Elliot Erwitt, those are usually the ones that make me want to get out the door more than anything. Alex, question for the group. Does anyone try to favor old school or vintage when shooting film? I often try to frame out Teslas or ultra modern stuff, especially when every image we're seeing is timeless. Yeah, I get that. There's stuff just doesn't. There's two sides of it because it very well could be nostalgia that's playing a big part in being drawn towards older things, and I think also it's things that we're not seeing every single day, and so when you find something that does have that same kind of feeling of you're looking back at something that's not commonplace anymore, and it's not as readily accessible, you know, for us when we're out taking photos. I think that has a big thing to do with it, but I also just think things looked better. Design overall nowadays versus design of, you know, the 80s or 90s or earlier than that even. I think, I mean, you look at things like McDonald's or just any like chain restaurant or storefront, everything is just these big, bland boxes with no character, no attention to detail in the design. There are a lot of things that I think, you know, attribute to that. There is something to be said, though, for photographing everything right now as it really is, because in 50 years, hopefully, you know, things will continue to change, hopefully improve as well. But it's one of those things that, you know, right now it doesn't look interesting, but in 50 years it will. The kind of stuff that we look at in these books that, man, everything just looked so much cooler back then, or it just looks different than what it looks like now. People will be saying the same things about photos that are being made today that are referencing Teslas and, you know, modern things like that. But from a pure aesthetic standpoint, yeah, one of the photos I have of the mill, I have a photo of the mill shooting from across the street of Jerry's Pizza, which is like a local favorite around here. I personally could take it or leave it, but it's a staple in this area. People love Jerry's Pizza, and it's right next to the paper mill. And I have a shot from across the street, mostly of the pizza shop, but the mill is in the background, and I love the photo. However, there's like, you know, just some standard modern sedan parked out front, and I always think I want to try and reshoot this when there are no cars in front of the frame, just to, you know, clean it up a little bit and not have something be necessarily as what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you can't date the photo unless you have something that clearly dates it, like the year and make of a model, you know, of a certain kind of car or something like that. I do enjoy finding things that are a little bit more ambiguous, where you can't really tell when it was made. A lot of the stuff that I like to shoot, or how I like to shoot typically, is very bare and not full of all of those kind of things that you can pick out and tell when the photo was made. So I definitely get that. Ian says, the only really timeless images are landscapes. I personally try to reflect the current state of things, warts and all. Sometimes that's old school, sometimes it's not, for sure. Nick says, I stopped trying to cut out modern cars and things. I embrace juxtaposition, sometimes to highlight the difference in designs. Yeah, exactly. Like, it can clash for sure, but at the same time, yeah, it's telling, you know, the story of where you're at right now, where we're at right now. Don says black and white conveys emotion better than color, in my opinion. Picture some of the famous shots through the decades and try to remember what sticks. Yeah, I've often found, and I've talked about it before, I find color can be too distracting at times. Um, when there's just really pretty color in a scene, that becomes the subject or the conversation around the photo. It's like, man, look how good that color looks, versus where the photographer was in that moment, what was around them, what was going on, or what wasn't happening, you know, at least around here when things aren't super busy and there's not a ton of energy throughout the photo. Yeah, you kind of put yourself in the shoes of the photographer a little bit more when you have all of that kind of stuff stripped away, at least for me personally. But I know plenty of people who could never go out and shoot black and white because they need color. You know, that's part of the reality. You know, we're seeing in color, we're not seeing in black and white. So what are we discussing? Oh, we just took a look at Chris Killip's Skin and Grove, if you're just now joining us. Really, really good book. But we're kind of talking about black and white, color, modern times, old times, the juxtaposition of the two if you're out photographing things nowadays. In 20 years, the pizza shop will carry weight for someone who sees the photo. Yeah, for sure. That's the whole goal, is like, and I try to keep that in mind when I'm taking photos, at least around here. For instance, our first photo assignment we did with the Discord members, the channel members over on Discord, I guess I should say. It was all relating to memory, and it was hard for me to try and find something around here that I haven't already photographed to death. And most of the things that I go out and shoot are already sort of tied to my own personal memories of that place, my own connection to it. That's why when I go to a place that I'm not familiar with, even if it's a big city full of beautiful things to photograph, it's hard for me to find that connection where I want to take a photo, you know? So that was a good exercise. Speaking of the photo assignments, we are, I think today there's like a few hours left over on Discord for what our next assignment is going to be. The last time I looked, it was tied up between photographing strangers, getting portraits of strangers, people we don't know, or the Friedlander selfie, the shadow nose kind of style where you're incorporating your own shadow into the composition. Right now, those are neck and neck on the poll, so we'll see what happens. I know David was he was trying to get me to avoid throwing the portraits of strangers in there, but I was like, that's exactly why it needs to be in there so we can grow. Because that's something I don't do enough of. It's something I always enjoy seeing other people do, minus the the TikTok photographers that are doing that kind of style. But it's something I want to improve on and get better at. So we'll see where the poll goes. Yeah, Wayne as well was saying. I think Wayne was the one who was saying I usually try to avoid having anyone in the photo at all. So. See, this is why we need to grow, guys. Let's see. This is the first year shooting black and white, and I find it really focuses you on composition or story. Can't hide. Right. That's the thing. It's like you can't use the color, the pretty color in a scene as the crutch. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I have plenty of photos that I've made with color over the years that I know I chalk them up to just pretty pictures, because that's all they are. It's like they're pleasing to look at. But yeah, sometimes black and white kind of forces you to dig a little bit deeper with that. Hunter, I finally caved and bought a printer for our wedding invites. A photo book will be next. Suggest a topic for me. Open for challenges. Let's see. Suggest a topic for a book for you to make. Let me think on that, Because, I mean, you could go in so many different directions with that. Awesome to get out of your comfort zone. That's what it's all about. I'm in my comfort zone with strangers. See, Greg's got a leg up on us here. I started shooting portraits at the tail end of last racing season, and it's going to be a focus this year for me. It's interesting how doing portraits for a living, portraits, headshots, weddings, families, all of that kind of stuff, I feel so comfortable in that environment, but just approaching people who aren't asking to have their photo made, that's always been the challenge, because I'm like, I don't want to bother these people. But anytime I actually have done it, though, it's only been a positive experience. So like many things, it's one of those things I just need to constantly remind myself, don't mention weddings. I did way too many of those in the 80s. I went through different periods where it was a job and it was a way to, make ends meet. And then I came around after I got married to really enjoy weddings. And Molly and I had a super simple wedding. It was like a 60-second ceremony back here in this field, right outside this barn. And we had barbecue and donuts from the local donut shop, and just had all of our family over. And it was exactly what we wanted. And I think having photographed weddings for years before that, it taught me a lot about what I didn't want to have to deal with on my own wedding day. When I do the portraits of the bride and groom after the ceremony, we'll do like family photos, the whole wedding party, and then just the bride and groom last. And I always give them like 5 or 10 minutes to just kind of catch their breath and take a beat before we jump right back into the reception and, all of that kind of stuff. Because people are stressed on their wedding day way too often. It can be such a big production, Any portrait tips? I missed one up here before that. Speaking of zines, do y'all have a favorite size? Seems like a lot are around the A4 size. That's pretty standard. I like a zine that just feels like you took a sheet of letter size, like 8.5 by 11, and just folded it in half. That's just a good, modest, but just enough kind of size. You know what I mean? Any portrait tips? Get whoever it is in front of the lens, just find the common ground and just focus more on their comfortability right out of the gate. Because if they're not comfortable, you could do all of the fancy, photographic techniques you want. But if they're not really comfortable and they're not really presenting themselves, more often than not, maybe you won't notice if you don't know the person, but people who do know that person will be able to spot that, easily. So focusing more on just getting people comfortable in front of the lens and talk to them like a person, not just a subject in the photo, Was just trying to photograph my 2 kids under 4 with my M3 since it was decent weather today. Damn near impossible. Any tips? I'm guessing zone focus, but wanted to isolate more. If you're not going to stop the lens down and just rely on zone focusing, oftentimes if you just kind of keep the lens at a certain distance, the distance that you think you want to shoot a photo of them in, keeping it around there, even if your lens isn't maybe not wide open, unless they're sitting perfectly still, but under 4, good luck with that. Kind of just keeping that same distance. If they move forward 3 feet, you move forward 3 feet. If they come towards you 3 feet, take a few steps back. You know what I mean? Just trying to stay within that same distance. That's going to save you from having to, pull focus as far on the lens. But it can be challenging, especially if you're not going to be framing them dead center, like you're going to focus with the rangefinder patch, which is dead center in the viewfinder. That's not always where you want your subject, though. So it can be a challenge for sure. My best advice, although you said aside from zone focusing, would be to zone focus. And if you're using, you said an M3, so maybe you've got a 35 on there and you've got some goggles, but most of the time I feel like people use the M3 with a 50, and that's going to be even more challenging for the shooting wide open, and even for zone focusing, you're not going to have as much in focus at any of those given focal lengths or apertures. 35 is kind of the sweet spot for me. That's always what I've preferred. Using that 21 millimeter that I've been shooting with a little bit, realizing that even though I need to focus through the viewfinder or through the rangefinder and then recompose with the little 21 millimeter viewfinder attachment, more often than not, I don't need to bounce back and forth from the rangefinder to the viewfinder because everything is pretty much going to be in focus with that lens. Unless I'm shooting like wide open and shooting up really close, then I'm going to need to focus before I shoot or before I recompose. But more often than not, I think the whole day that I was shooting with that lens, I didn't go below f8, and yeah, pretty much everything is going to be in focus with a lens that wide. Yes, that is the wind making all that racket. I'm telling you, it's crazy windy today, and we're supposed to get more tomorrow. We've had so much random stuff blown out of our yard, from our neighbor's yard into ours. That was part of the cleanup today as well. It's just been nuts lately. Get out of your comfort zone with a flash photo. I need more of that myself too. I have been using a flash a little bit more. Most of my flash use has always been off-camera flash. I've gone through different periods of time where I like using a flash on camera. Like right now I've been using one on my M6 quite a bit, but most of the time if I'm using a flash, I like to get it off the camera so I can really kind of shape the light and control the distance to the subject if I don't want to be the same distance as my flash, you know what I mean? But that, again, just goes back to the portraits and shooting portraits for years. I used to love off-camera lighting for portraits. I love being married the last 21 years, but my wedding was pure misery. A person who doesn't enjoy being the center of attention, joining a huge Latin family was tough in the early years. I can imagine. Yeah, the cultural differences with different cultures in general. That's an interesting thing that I've experienced just being a wedding photographer. People telling me ahead of time, like, they're not big on photos, so feel free, but if they give you some odd looks, like, that's all it is. It's always an interesting kind of combination with that. And just photographing very different families. When two people come together and it's maybe not culturally different, but I mean, kind of, not necessarily different backgrounds, with like different ethnicities, but just different vibes altogether, and combining everyone together, it can make for some interesting atmosphere in the photos for sure. My wedding was my friend marrying us by an apple tree on the Robert Frost farm. Hell yeah. Then we went out for barbecue and beer with the family. That's perfect. Exactly. That's the kind of weddings I enjoy. Last year I did that one wedding out at Red River Gorge in West Virginia. Or wait, were we in Kentucky or West Virginia? Can't remember. Where was that? I don't know. We went for a hike though, and it was up on top of a mountain, and it was awesome. And I've done a few like small elopements at like Hocking Hills in Ohio and things like that, and those are always super enjoyable. The simpler, the better. Although I am going to be doing a wedding in October. A girl I know from that lives around here, she reached out and asked about her wedding, and I think she's going to have 10 bridesmaids and he's going to have 10 groomsmen. So it's going to be a whole party. But those are also fun. Wayne, so if we go stranger portraits, street shots where the subject doesn't know don't count, right? No, those don't count. You gotta go up to the person and make it known that you are making a portrait. But I think this is the perfect way to go about that if you are gonna need to get out of your comfort zone because you have an excuse. Like you're not just going up and being like, I just think you look cool. Because that's a valid reason to want to make a photo, but oftentimes how that's going to be received, you never know with some people. Um, and so if you say I'm a part of this photo club and we're doing these like photo challenges, don't call it an assignment, call it a challenge. Let them know that the purpose of what we're doing is trying to grow as photographers and learn from each of us that are participating, and just try to learn in the process. Like that's the whole goal of it. So I mean, you could tell them it's for a photo class if you want, you know what I mean? But get out of the comfort zone in a way where it doesn't feel maybe as awkward for you. Like you can tell them what this is for, and that it's just about growth. And I think that people are going to be more receptive to that in general. You know what I mean? I feel like that's a perfect icebreaker. So I mean, I'm pitching one right down the middle for you, Wayne. You got this. Using an M3 for kids, you need the 50 and Tri-X, fast shutter, and good depth of field. Yep. Same here in Cincy. Windy. Yeah, man, we haven't caught a break with this wind lately. The wind and the rain. I'll take anything over the ice and snow, but I'm ready for comfortable time outside. Nora was asking all day to have a fire, and I'm like, it is way too windy to be sitting around the fire right now because it would be blowing all over everyone. And I'm not trying to take a trip to the emergency room on the weekend. Speaking of an emergency room, where the Pit fans at? Several of us were fully nerding out on the Pit over on Discord the other day. That's my current obsession. Molly and I are hooked on that show. And we're all caught up now. We just started it like a few weeks ago, and now we're caught up. So we're counting down the days to Thursday for the new episode, but so good. Baby Jane Doe. Matt inspired me to start trying flash photography. I'm going to pick up something this year after the Canon Selphy 1500. Hell yeah. Nick, if you come through town to try out that lens, we'll get some flash going that day. Speaking of that, let me share what I've got here. Might just need to go back to my Nikon for the kids stuff, to be honest. Nothing wrong with that. That oftentimes I do have quite a bit of photos of the kids. Now that I think about it, in the backyard at our old house, that was a lot of back and forth with the M6 and the FM2. Both with a 35 millimeter lens usually. But that's not a bad idea. When I watch those TikTok ones, I'm always thinking, how are they going to make this look good? Then I see the result. Usually they don't. I met a neighbor last week and chatted with him for a while. 92 years old and super cool dude. Hell yeah. See, hit him up. I guess that's not technically a stranger anymore since you already got to know him, but you should still get a photo of him, because 92, you gotta make a photo while you can. Not to be morbid or anything, but I'm sure your neighbor's family would love to have a solid portrait of him. You should definitely do that. So what we have right here is a lens from Viltrox. Now, I have never used a Viltrox lens before. Years ago, I think when my first monitor that I bought for my D750 when I was filming YouTube videos was a pretty inexpensive Viltrox monitor. And now they're making lenses, and they're making like pretty nice lenses. So this is a 51.4 for the Nikon Z mount. This is the lens that Nick in the chat was saying that he was interested in checking this lens out. So I said, well, hey, you're not far. He's in Ohio. Come check it out sometime. And so far, I just got it like 2 days ago. And so I'm going to be doing a full video on this lens to test it out, but just from the quick testing, it seems to be much sharper and possibly even faster autofocus than my Nikon 50mm, which the Nikon 50mm that I have isn't their like highest end 50. It's another 50 1.4, but it's a lens that isn't necessarily like it's a pretty affordable lens for a Nikon brand 50 f1.4. But size-wise, you can see the difference here in the two lenses. The Viltrox is much bigger, much heavier, but it feels really, really well made. And like I said, just from a couple quick tests, it seems like this is a really, really sharp lens. You've got physical aperture ring on the lens. You can also just click it into A, so you can control it, control the aperture on the camera body itself. You've got a function button here on the side, autofocus, manual focus switch, and you can also declick the aperture as well. So that would be useful for video for sure. But yeah, so far, seems like a pretty solid lens. So I've got a buddy that makes knives and things. He's got a forge at his house, does all kinds of blacksmithing work, and I really want to take this over there and test it out in there. But I'll have a video on this in just a few weeks. So keep an eye out for that one. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure what this lens retails for, but it's a pretty solid lens. I was honestly impressed. It seems like we're getting more and more third-party options that you're not having as much of a hit on. I mean, if anything, this is an upgrade to the image quality on my Nikon lens, but typically years ago that was always sort of the trade-off. Like, well, it's not going to be as sharp or maybe as fast in autofocus as a native, you know, something made by the camera manufacturer. But it seems like we're getting more and more options for lenses, third party, which is nice. Their Lab series lenses look excellent. I plan to pick up the 35 1.2 at some point. So actually, that was the first lens that they had in mind when they reached out and wanted me to try out one of their lenses. First, it was the 35 1.2, and I thought it's probably not a lens I would use a ton. 35 at least. I have the 35 1.8S for Nikon, and I love that lens. Amazing image quality, fast, it's not very big, and the 1.2 lenses are pretty massive. But I was like, yeah, I'll definitely check it out. But then they said, well, we're kind of thinking maybe this new 50mm that we're coming out with, we'd like you to try that. And I was like, yeah, that works as well. So I'll do some direct comparisons in the video with the Nikon branded 50, but I'm 50 is usually what I go for with most portraits anyway. I've never been a big. There was a time when I had an old Nikon AFD 85mm that I used from time to time, but 50 is always just what I go for with portraits. It doesn't feel so far away, meaning like you're getting close with your subject, and I think that kind of stuff makes a difference in how the person feels and like the comfortability. It's just one of those things that 50 feels approachable. I don't know. I never worry about distortion or things like that. I know a lot of people would never use a 50 for portraits, but that's always been my favorite when it comes to portraits. Speaking of cheaper lenses, has anyone tried the TT Artisans 40mm f2 lens? I just got one for under $200 new. I was wildly impressed. I have not tried that lens, but I've wanted to, because it looks, the manual aperture ring on there, the size of the lens, that seems like a really compelling lens, especially for the price. So I haven't tried that one, but I have friends who have, and they've said it's great. I do wish Nikon put aperture rings. Yeah, at least on like the 40 f2 that Nikon came out with the ZF. You know, they basically just rehoused a lens they already made and gave it somewhat of a more vintage style. But if they would have put physical aperture ring on that lens, I think that would have kind of really tied the whole vintage feel of it. And I like using a physical aperture ring from time to time. Oh, you just picked up the 85 Viltrox from B&H. Hell yeah. Let me know how you like it. Because so far the 50's impressing me. I enjoyed their 16 millimeter f1.8 AF. Nice. Viltrox has been making lens adapters with glass in them forever, so it makes sense to see native mount lenses that are good. I think, yeah, Viltrox they make some of the like speed booster type adapters. Is that right? I feel like I remember seeing those. I briefly had the original Blackmagic Cinema, the one that was micro four thirds. I had it for like a hot second, and then realized I was going to need to get a bunch of different things to kind of kit it out to what I wanted it to be. And this was like 6 years ago, so it was before they made the APS-C and the full frame versions. But oh, doomed all day. Thoughts on Randy Orton turning heel? WrestleMania is only a few weeks away. Orton will never not be cool. Orton as a heel works perfectly, but I was kind of hoping we'd see Cody turn at Mania. I feel like it's time. It's time. Listen to the crowd; they're ready for it. It's got to happen at some point. We're entering Hogan era. You know what I mean? It's time. We need to change it up. But Orton can do no wrong. He's a legend at this point. $500 is a great price point for a decent lens. I agree. I think that's a really good for a decent lens, especially like a lens that is. I'm telling you, I don't want to say too much yet because I need to do like a proper testing out, but I was genuinely surprised when I started using this Viltrox lens. Just looking at a couple of files. Yeah, for the price, I mean, similar to, we've talked about it with Leica lenses. There are certain Leica lenses I've owned over the years that I just love the look of them. The V4 35 Summicron is one of my all-time favorite lenses just in terms of the rendering. But for the price, man, it's tough to justify. I think, especially when I don't use a digital M anymore, which means I'm pretty much always shooting at least 400 speed film if I'm not pushing it. And most of the time, I'm not going to be using a lens wide open anyway. Most of the time with my M6, I'm at f8 or f11. So paying all that extra money for either a faster lens or something that really gives you a lot of character, but only when you're shooting wide open, it's tough to justify it. I think Lesnar retires this year at SummerSlam. I hope so. I think it's time as well. Yeah, it's time. Right off into the sunset. SummerSlam would be a good time to do it. Did you go to the wrestling convention yesterday? The one in Chillicothe? Was that yesterday? I knew there was one this month. I know Jerry Lawler was going to be there. I'm trying to think who else they had on that. I didn't go to it. I took Elliot to his first wrestling show when RVD wrestled Matt Riddle in Chillicothe a year or two ago. And I took Elliot to that. That was his first wrestling show. And he had a good time, but he was ready to go home and go to bed. He's a bit like me. Go be social for a little bit, and then it's like, all right, let's bounce, dude. So, but he had a good time. We want to go to a Raw or SmackDown or something at some point. He's a kid, so he's a big Jey Uso fan. Naturally, can't lie. It's the kids love him. TT Artisan 40 mil is fantastic. It just stays on my ZF. It's like a full X100 camera with it, but I'm primarily a Fuji and OM Systems user. Right on. Yeah, that seems like, I think I remember talking to someone about that where I was like, this feels, I haven't used it, but just based on the physical aperture ring and the size, I was like, that seems like it would be the perfect fit more than the Nikon branded 40 f2, just because it has that manual kind of tactile feel. How do you like the OM Systems cameras? I've never used any of those. I've used Fuji plenty of times over the years, but I've never tried any of the OM systems. What used to be Olympus. You got to try the Mandler 35 7 element. It's a King of Bokeh clone for $348. Is that how much that lens is, really? I saw people talking about that lens. I knew it was a clone, but I didn't know it was of the V4. But I definitely didn't know it was. I assumed it was one of the more expensive clone versions. So that's interesting. I might try one of those out just to see. Have you seen that Ricoh are bringing out a monochrome version of the GR4? GR4 monochrome? Is that what we're talking about? I would like a GR4X, so a 40 mil equivalent, not the 28, and a monochrome version. If they make that, I'll be tempted to finally try a Ricoh camera, because I've never tried one before. The GR3X was the first one that really kind of made me think I might like it, because I've just never been a big 28 millimeter fan, but 40 mil equivalent with a monochrome sensor, you might have my attention there. They're tempting. Yeah, I'll look into those Mandler lenses, because I didn't realize that they were actually affordable. Red, what's going on? Yeet. Still waiting for that LA Knight push. The Vision storyline isn't doing it for me. Feels a bit forced to me. They got a bad luck with all the injuries, man. Braun and Bronson getting injured at the same time, basically. They had momentum behind that, and I was into it. But then with both of those guys being gone, you got Paul and Theory left. Ain't much vision in that. Yeah, the 40 millimeter TT Artisan lives on my S5 IIX. Did you sell yours? The S5 II, I did. I sold to, I think Richter bought that one, my old roommate. Yeah, when I got the Z8, that was when I sold my Lumix stuff. Loved the S5 II though for video. The autofocus in some of the like working scenarios, like where I taking photos for my daughter's school, the autofocus didn't have a great time keeping up for some of those kids. So that one wasn't a good fit for photo for me personally, just that particular use case. But I loved the files, and for video, that was one of my favorite cameras I used for video was the S5 II. Panananas. Hi, everyone. Hey, how we doing? GR4 monochrome. That's it. Okay. I'm still holding out for the X version, the 40 mil equivalent, but yeah, I'd be interested in trying that. Got the Thypoc 35. I don't usually double down on focal lengths, but the Mandler has me in a headlock. It's just hard to find in stock. Got it. Yeah, Thypoc lenses. That's another one that they make great lenses. And now they're making them in multiple different mounts. It's not just all M mount that you are going to have to adapt to something else. Right on. I've been using Olympus OMs for 20 years as my primary gear. Right now an OM3 and 2 OM5 cameras. Hell yeah. I've always been like, I appreciate the size of those cameras being micro four thirds and not having as heavy of a bag. I gotta say, this lens, as much as I've been saying, like, it seems like a really quality lens, it will most likely be strictly used for work, because I can't see myself walking around with this lens on a Z8. That's if I'm going to carry a camera that big, I'm going to go back to a medium format film camera or something, because the Z8 is a beast and this lens is big and heavy. I have a Ricoh GR3X. Wouldn't mind letting you borrow it if you want. If you really wouldn't mind, I would be happy to take you up on that, and I'll send you something in return as a thank you. Shoot me an email if you would like to do that. I'll be quick with it. Take a couple of weeks to test it out, and then I can share my thoughts in a video or something. That would be a lot of fun though, because I've never tried one. But my buddy Kevin in Minneapolis, he just got a GR3X not too long ago, and he was like, "Yeah, this is the move." He sold his M10R and just sticking with GR3X for his digital use, and he was like, "Yeah, this is exactly what I needed to do." So check the link. I tried posting for Mandler. They're out of stock right now, but supposed to get more in. I'll keep an eye on that. If I can, I feel like a couple people I know have posted about picking one up. Maybe after some time, I could borrow one of theirs just to try out and get a feel for it and share some stuff here. Because yeah, I again, I did not expect it to be a budget option for that clone. All this gear talk flaming up my gas. It happens from time to time. I don't really have much. Like I'm curious about new lenses and cameras and things, just to see who it would be useful for or who it might appeal to. In terms of adding things to my kit, I've really enjoyed not being in the hunt for anything. You know what I mean? Like I've enjoyed just being like, all right, I'm just gonna stick with what I've always enjoyed and what's the one constant camera, my M6, and a 35 HP5. Like really, really enjoying the peace of mind. I also feel like I'm drawn to more things to photograph when I only have that one option, and I know exactly what I'm going to be seeing and how I'm going to compose with just the one lens. I know it's going to be black and white. All of the, this or that kind of conversation kind of goes out the window, and I already feel that like, oh yeah, it's more second nature when I don't have to think about what I'm going to use for it. You know what I mean? I already see how it's going to look with a 35 and in black and white. So yeah, that little bit less resistance goes a long way. The size of a camera is literally my main consideration. Yeah, for sure. It's something that like I've heard people's argument against that through YouTube comments, because that's something I always talk about in a video, is like it's a little bit too big for my liking, and people are like, why is it that much of how does it make that much of a difference? And I think in a working environment it does, maybe less considerably, because I'm always thinking about, is this a camera that's going to get daily use, or is this a lens that's going to get daily use? If it's big and heavy and cumbersome, I'm going to be much less likely to want to carry it around with me. Like when I shot Surveyor, I shot that entire book with a Pentax 672 and the 75, probably 99% of the photos. There might have been one or two photos with the 105, but if I remember right, I think all of the keepers that ended up in the book were made with the 75. And as soon as I was done with that project, I was ready to leave the 672 and just get back to using a smaller camera, because it makes a big difference. Pretty convincing video on the Mandler and weighs it up against a Cron. Oh, good looking out, Alex. I'll check that out. Honestly, with how nice adapting to Nikon Z is, I may never buy a Leica M camera. Honestly, like for the image quality and being able to adapt M lenses to pretty much anything, it's a tough argument, especially for the price. If I ever get one, I'll loan it to you. I've got a Zeiss and Voigtlander 35 millimeters here anyway. I appreciate that, Don. I like small lenses on my M7, easy, portable, but obviously night photography is nicer with the Thypoc 35 1.4. Yeah, time and place, for like if I were shooting low light stuff, my Voigtlander Color Scopar, it's an f2.5, not the most ideal lens for low light, but it's a pancake. I mean, it's so small, and again, when I'm usually shooting, it's during the day, 400 speed, if not faster. So I'm always stopping down because I've got max 1/1000th of a shutter, or of a second on the shutter. It always surprised me how my Olympus equivalent Pro 35 f1.2 was smaller than my Nikon 35 1.8. I bet. Yeah, the older, like the full frame 35 millimeter Olympus cameras, even those they always kept really compact. If I can't fit it in my pocket or put it around my neck comfortably, I'm not bringing it. Yep. Especially like when you're not just out and about. I used to go hiking with a backpack full of cameras. But day to day, if I'm just out running errands or going to work at the shop or if I'm with my family, I don't want to be bogged down with a bunch of really heavy equipment and a bunch of extra stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah, less is better. Less is more. My run and gun is generally a ZF and Voigtlander F-mount lens. Perfect setup for me. Hell yeah. Simulux 50mm or Summicron 50mm for use on M6 and M10. Any advice or experience? I had a 50mm Summilux for several years, and I'm not a 50mm diehard. Unless I'm shooting portraits, I pretty much always prefer a 35. You're using an M10. I was going to say if you're just using an M6, the amount of time that you'll shoot wide open, unless you're shooting a lot of low light stuff, will probably be a little more, kind of rare. With an M10, being able to control your ISO, you could shoot wide open with that lens, and it is an incredible lens. However, for the price and even size and weight, I would probably, if it were me personally, granted I don't have an M10 or M11, I don't have any digital M's right now. It would only be on my M6. If it were me, I would go with the Summicron. F2 is plenty fast enough for my uses, and they're just solid lenses. I used to own both of those, and yeah, I would say for just a all-around solid performer, no matter what camera, digital or film, I would probably lean Summicron. Voigtlander 40 1.2 for Z looks so good on the ZF. I have been wanting to try, just because I've always enjoyed Voigtlander lenses on my M6. I've wanted to try some of their Z-mount stuff. My Yashica's with me all the time. My FM2 is with me on the weekends. Hell yeah. Yep, Don says 50 Summicron gets my vote unless you need the faster lens, and the Kron is cheaper. Lux for glow, Kron for sharpness. Yep, exactly. Yeah, the Summilux has like a very distinct look to it when you're shooting wide open. If you stop the lens down, also, if you stop that lens down, the aperture blades don't come to like a nice perfect circle. You have that sort of like hexagonal shape. So if you're shooting something at maybe 5.6 and there's a tree in the background and there's light coming through the leaves and branches, the bokeh is not going to be, it's going to have a very hexagonal shape to it. Might not bother you, but for me, once I started to notice it, I was like, that kind of doesn't look as good. It just can look kind of jarring depending on what you're shooting. And again, for me, 50 millimeters, usually it's for a portrait. So yeah, Summicron gets my vote. How's the whole AI thing affecting your town? I mean, aside from people just thinking it's the coolest shit ever, and now evidently in like one county over, I guess there's going to be a data center being built, and people I know seem super stoked on it. I'm not. Everything about AI I'm just not down with it at all. Environmentally, how people are using it instead of thinking. Like, use your brain. Use your brain. That's it. That's the whole thing. Like, why do we need computers to do literally everything for us and take away existing, you know? I just, Yeah, but they love it for their Facebook profile pictures. They think it's the coolest thing. Hello from San Jose, California. What's up? I've never been to San Jose, but I've always wanted to, simply for the skateboarding that came out of San Jose. Shout out Tilt Mode Army. I hope Fuji would try a 1.8 version of their fantastic 2.0s. Yeah, the Fuji 2.0 line, the Fujicrons, as I think my buddy Take, Big Head Taco, I think he was the one that coined that. Those are solid lenses. I used to use the XT3 for portraits and weddings and things like that, and I had the 35 f2, 50 f2, and 23 f2, and that covered all my bases. Got a 50 on the FM2, Yashica's 35. What more does one need? Nothing wrong with that. I used to kind of do the same thing with a 50 on my FM2 and 35 on my M6. Nowadays, I'm mostly using the 35 on the FM2 as well, but I've got my 50 on the F2 that Don sent over, so I'm going to probably use that tomorrow at the shop. Tilt Mode, hell yeah. I'm glad you knew. I'm glad. I had no idea if you even skated, but I just thought I've got to shout out Tilt Mode. I'm glad to know that resonated with you. Louis and Jerry's part in the Osiris video, Man Down, the whole Tilt Mode video, Man Down. A buddy of mine used to have that one on VHS, and we would watch that one all the time. Going to be less down for it when electricity goes up and it's used to fill up databases for like Palantir AI bombing children. Boom. Exactly, dude. It's lose-lose. That's all I feel about it. It's all lose-lose. AI, I've seen too many Terminator movies. Exactly. NVIDIA and Sam Altman ruined it. Yep. Hi, Matt, longtime fan from Perth, Western Australia. I use my Leica 2 Barnack. Hell yeah. Shout out Australia. Jose Rojo is a good friend of mine. No shit. That's amazing. He had one of my favorite parts in Bag of Suck. That rules. There's another like random kind of full circle thing. I have a Minolta XL601. That's my Super 8 camera that I use. The only reason I chose that camera is because in the credits of Bag of Suck, Jose Rojo does a backtail 360 shove, and Joe Brook is follow filming with a Super 8 camera. And he shouts out the camera and like holds it up. So he says the name of the camera, and I didn't know what kind of Super 8 camera to buy, but seeing that I was like, well, I know this can't be a bad option because Joe Brook is using it. So that's why I ended up buying that camera like 13-14 years ago or something. So that rules. Jose Rojo is a ripper. Do you dabble in cryptocurrencies or stocks? I do not. All of that stuff beyond my wheelhouse. I know nothing about it, and yeah, that's all I've got. I don't know anything about stocks or crypto or any of that stuff. Let's see. Yeah, I've seen that documentary too. I think it's called T2 Judgment Day. Hell yeah. I showed a mate my Yashica yesterday, knows nothing about cameras, and when I said how much it's worth, he nearly fell over. Yeah, I think people kind of have this assumption with older cameras that they go for the prices they go for at times, you know? I think the whole future where technology allows us to live lives where we're less concerned with productivity and more able to create human experience, that AI is doing art, we're doing work. Yeah, like I don't mind if you're using a program or if a software is utilizing AI to like speed up things and it's useful in work scenarios. It's the like generative AI where people are just creating junk, like just copies and just a mix match of a bunch of things that have already been made by humans. I feel like there's just so much human growth that is going to be lost in I'll just have AI do it instead. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it can create something faster and it can create something that looks real life and all these things, but like the process is the point most of the time, you know? Like that's where you're learning, that's where you're growing in the process, not just like, oh, I thought of something and now I just had this thing make it really quickly. It's like you're going to learn and grow from messing up and not understanding things and having to figure it out, you know? Uh, yeah. Skating got me into photography. I feel like that's a common thing. The two go hand in hand. Speaking of lens brands, keep hearing a lot of good things about Light Lens Lab. I did try out a Light Lens Lab a while back, and build quality wise and optically, it was great. It was a replica of a lens that had a lot of character. Um, and some of them I've seen that they clone are lenses that are like a lot of character, kind of to the point where the conversation around the photo is the way it looks because of that lens, which is kind of what we talked about earlier in terms of like using color and things like that as a crutch or a really fast lens. It's easy for those things to become a crutch. But I will say they do a really good job of making the lenses, reproducing things, especially like getting really close to those classic looks. We're supposed to automate the boring stuff, not the fun stuff. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, why would I want it to do the things for me that are fun, that I can enjoy doing, you know? AI discussion reminds me of this quote from iRobot with Will Smith. I miss the good old days. What good old days when people were killed by other people? Yeah. Yeah, it's none of this has a good ending, I think. If people continue to just, which it seems that way, that people are like full embrace of AI, I just don't think humanity was ready for them to like open the floodgates so quickly. Like if you look at how quickly generative AI and things like that progressed and then became accessible, it's just created things that I don't think people are ready to really face or even understand yet. You know what I mean? Myself included. I'm not saying I'm like an expert and know all the ins and outs, but like it's, you know, handing the keys to the car to a kid, just being like, yeah, sure, it's fun, go for it. You don't know all the ins and outs yet, but it's free. Here you go. I don't know you, but to me, generative AI is related directly with pretty bad taste. Yeah, dude. Well said. I've seen some really crazy AI portrait work, but I'm like, you envisioned the thing. Why don't you grab a camera and go make it? Exactly. You got to just do it. Using generative AI for art is like traveling to Dubai for holidays. Just picked up a Pentax 6.7 and watched your video from 9 years ago when you got yours for 300. Times have changed. Yeah, it's tough, man. I get comments on old videos pretty regularly where people are like, you paid what for this? Yeah, it's wild to see how some of those prices have gone. Man, there are plenty of cameras where I'm like, yep, I sold it years ago, but I'm not going to buy it again because I'd be paying double what I paid back then, you know? I go backwards and against the stream and a lot, and AI is no exception. It makes me look even older, but I search more and more for doing things like in the old days. Think I was born in the wrong time. I feel that a lot. I tell you, man, working at the shop where I'm just working with my hands and wood, not doing any sort of like anything involving a computer or marketing, all of that stuff. Like I have such an aversion to that already that since I've started at the shop, which I guess now it's been almost 6 months, it's just so refreshing. To be clear, I am strongly anti-AI from a general standpoint. Also, the current AI tech isn't intelligent. LLMs will never develop sentience. Yeah. AI is just another new technology. It's not the tech, it's the user that matters. True, yeah. Like I said, the for efficiency in work related things, like I understand the benefit, but at the same time, you're also looking at what jobs, that's going to replace and how that's going to affect people, the economy, all of the different things. Like it's getting too dystopian. And I always, like, all I come back to is just thinking about my kids, and like what their adult lives are going to look like and like how they're going to navigate it. My dad was much older than my friends' dads growing up. He was 53 when I was born. Is that right? Wait, 50? Yeah, 53 when I was born. So growing up, I heard stories about him growing up and what it was like for him and how different it was. And he used to talk about it when I was like a teenager. Like, he was like, I feel genuinely bad for your generation because you have to worry about so much more than I had to worry about growing up, with like drug abuse and especially around here, like opioids and people getting hooked on those and violence. Like, there's just such a disconnect between my youth and his youth. And hearing stories, that's always how I felt, where I'm like, damn, I wish I grew up in that time. You know what I mean? Obviously, there's pros and cons to everything. And like, we wouldn't be doing this right now if we were living in a time like that. Um, it's just, I don't know. It's tough. One positive on AI is that it makes the human experience more valuable and also sought out intentionally by people who, without AI, wouldn't have that drive. That's a good point. I've talked about that before. I think that like people are going to start seeking out more authenticity across the board, in how things are made, in what people are consuming, like their own processes and what they do. I feel like people are going to be drawn to that. Speaking of which, David says, I think a record player would look good in that space, Matt. I worry about the humidity with the records out here. I run a dehumidifier for the books and all the paper, and it does a good job, but all of our records are just stored inside the house right now. We were talking about it on Discord the other day. I haven't used my record player in a few years because our children all want to play DJ Lethal and just scratch everything. So they're put up for now, but I do miss putting on a record. 53 World War II vet. No, he was in the Marines, but he was never in any wars, thankfully. All you young people discovered film that's driven the prices up. Good news is my collection is worth money again. See, you got in early, Don. You've got the leg up on us there. I don't need my appliances to be networked, though. Controlling my thermostat by phone is nice. Yeah, there are things like that it's like, I talk about it with Elliot. Every game we play and every new thing, it's like we got to make an account and then we got to get an email and I got to find the code that it sends me so we can log in. And I'm like, I just miss coming home with a cartridge and plugging it in and playing the whole game. No patches, no DLC. Yeah, I miss that. He does love actual, like, he plays the Game Boy Advance. He got a DS recently, and today he was saving up his allowance to buy a Pokemon game for the Nintendo DS, a game from like 20 years ago. So he does appreciate the classics. I'm raising him right there. My legs hurt now. Speaking of which, I did tell him that after my stream, I would help him link his Lego account to his Fortnite account, because then you can get some kind of Lego skin. He's dying to have it. So that's what I'm going to do after the stream. We're coming in at an hour and a half right now. If anybody has any last minute questions, things you want to shout out before we wrap up here, that'll probably do it for this week's stream. This is a fun one. Had a good conversation with everybody. Appreciate you all being here. I think, I'm glad I thought of this before we closed out. Next week's stream, as long as nothing comes up and nothing needs changed, next week's stream will be, I was going to say a little different. It's going to be very different. We're going to take the stream down the road to my buddy AJ's place, the House of Masks. He's been in videos before. I've shared photos of AJ and his space and everything. He has a massive mask collection. Horror movie masks, Slipknot masks. That's his whole thing, as well as like collections of other things as well. But we're going to be taking the stream over to AJ's place. I'm going to bring my computer and camera and everything, and we're going to stream from his place and do a shoot at his building. He lives in a church with a mini ramp and a bunch of masks and 90s memorabilia and collectibles. It's like a museum, basically. But we've been going out and taking photos with... He just started a new account all about using Instax film, Instax wide on white church buildings, like old school white churches. And he started a... Oh, my phone's up there. Let me get... I don't know if he's watching right now. Let me get his Instagram handle. Everyone should go follow this. AJ's not a photographer, but he's come up with a really rad sort of new photography project where he's doing all of this stuff on Instax film. A little white church. Let me put that in the chat. So he just started this. He mentioned the idea, and I was like, yeah, this is a little white church. At a little white church. It's in the chat. Search him up on Instagram. It's all Instax photos. He just got started with posting. I took my Epson V600 over there because I'm not really using it right now. So I was like, you just take this, scan your Instax film with it. It's perfect for that. So he's borrowing that for the time being. And he's just going around shooting photos of these white churches around here with Instax. And they all have a really consistent look and feel to it. He's not a photographer. It's super rad. I'm going to convince him to make a zine or something at some point, and I'll help him design it and get it going. But it's cool. So anyway, follow AJ over there. He'll be really stoked. But next week, we're going to go over there and shoot some portraits there. I'll bring some lighting. I kind of want to do it on Instax, or not Instax. I don't own any Instax. AJ loves Instax. I love Polaroid. That's our constant argument. But I think I would like to do all instant film over there. So that way we can see the photos in real time as they develop and share them. If I was using the Z8, I wouldn't be able to... I don't know exactly what the setup would be for showing them on stream in real time. That seems like it would be a lot. So I think we're going to keep it simple, at least for the first time we do this. And we'll do instant film. We'll mix in some off-camera lighting and just have a good time with it. So that's what we're going to do next week, unless something comes up and we need to push it back a week or something. But AJ came up with that idea, and I was like, actually, that would be a lot of fun. It would be a nice change of pace. Hunter, for that zine topic recommendation. All right, your first zine, you're going to make something at home. Initially, I was kind of thinking just something simple to get started, like photographing a day in the life. Like one day, tell as much of the story of that day. It doesn't need to be a day where you plan something to go out and shoot, but literally just what your actual regular daily routine would be. That's a good exercise to just kind of get started. Or you could take something like a sort of challenge, give yourself a certain area to stay within, maybe 1 block or 2 blocks or 3 blocks, wherever it is, wherever you might live, or just maybe a couple miles, east and west, and just stay on one road, one back road, and only make photos along that one road. Try to give yourself some constraint, because that's where the real kind of like, you're really working out, you're exercising at that point. You know what I mean? You can't just go to places that have pretty photo opportunities. You've got to really try to make something and find something. So give yourself some kind of challenge, whether it be a 24-hour period, a certain area that you have to stay within. Maybe keep it to one camera, one lens. You can give yourself some technical constraints there. That would be what I would start with, because this is just one, and this can be the first one of many, and you can, kind of expand on top of that as you go. Let me know what you think. Let's see. What time does your stream start next week? It's 5:30 a.m. here in Western Australia. It will be at the usual 4 p.m. Just since now we started on Wednesday nights when we first started doing the weekly live stream. At this point, the Sundays at 4 p.m. Eastern has been pretty well established, so it'll be at the same time. But just like all of the streams, everything will be available for replay afterwards when it's done. So if you can't catch it live, it'll still be up if you want to check it out when it's done. And when you wake up over there in Australia. I've got a week off next week, and I'm going to challenge myself to make something out of it. It might be a stranger portrait, Wayne, depending on the poll for the photo assignments. You might be working on a stranger portrait. We'll see. Hell yeah. Good luck, Hunter. Let me know how that goes. Who do you use to print and design zines? My zines that I've made before, aside from one of them, I had Caleb Jenkins design and print. My other two zines I designed using... What did I use for social distancing? I'm blanking now. I did it on the iPad. Was it Affinity? Affinity's app for the iPad? I can't remember at this point. In terms of printing, though, I was just a couple of days ago looking at Mixam, Mixam.com. No affiliation with them or anything, but I've been looking at them to print some zines for myself in the future. We opened up a zine last week that was printed by Mixam, and it looked really good. And I know that they have a software that you can download as well if you want to design and print through Mixam. So look into that one. Discord group link. So Discord is for channel members. It's $5 a month. And once you join as a channel member on YouTube, go over to the community tab on the YouTube channel, and you'll see the Discord invite link. Join that there, and that's where we're all hanging out, talking. Last night, I finished filming a video in here. Several of the channel members were all in a hangout, like video chat. And so I jumped in there, and it was fun. We all hang out and talk on a regular basis about photography, books, gear, the pit, as a lot of us are big fans of the pit. It's a good time over there. And obviously the photo assignments, that's what we've been really excited about recently. We're about to do photo assignment number 2, and I'm looking forward to it. So if that's something you'd be interested in, $5 a month, channel member, that goes towards that. And that's where we'll be. Hey, just on zines, anyone keen on making their own should consider stitching it themselves. So rewarding and adds a unique touch, handmade aesthetic. Plus you can mix up your papers, which is cool. Exactly. That's another good point. If you don't want to go the route of having a bunch made or having something that's like print to order, doing it yourself that way, that's another great way to do it. That's a good shout, Alex. I learned how to do that for a video couple years ago, I think. I needed like a creative exercise, and I'd never done that before, so I went out and shot some Polaroids and just made a little hand-stitched zine, and it was a good exercise. I enjoyed that. Am I allowed to poll Facebook to find a stranger if I am subjected to this? I'll allow it. I'll allow it. As long as it's not someone you know. Can't be a friend that you're friends with on Facebook, but you've never met him in person, but you kind of know each other like through social media. None of that. It's got to be someone that's not on your friends list, that you've never met, a friend of a friend or something. Bonus points, though, if you go up and approach someone who you have no idea who they are, what their name is, anything. There will be bonus points allotted to those who do that. That's all I'll say, David. I'm not going to twist your arm. We're weird, so you must be weird too. Hey, there he is. Welcome to channel members. Thank you for joining us, man. Head over to the community tab on the YouTube channel here, and you'll see the Discord invite link. So happy to have you. Excited to see you over there. Gauging interest on another assignment as well over there for practicing sequencing. Yes, yeah, that's another thing we're going to talk about as well. That looks like a lot of fun. Let's see. Oh, Friedlander is up 1 vote. All right. It's getting close. As of right now, the Shadow knows the Friedlander selfie. That might be what we're working with. We'll see what happens. There might be a few hours left on the poll. Hey, Matt, ever done an exhibition of any kind? I have locally. Well, I guess, and in Brooklyn as well for the work from Surveyor over at Brooklyn Film Camera. Just some small stuff, nothing crazy. I feel so weird in a room with people with my photos up on the wall. I would much rather just hand you a book and walk away and hope you enjoy it. It's just one of those things that, yeah, it's always an uncomfortable thing for me, but it is fun and it's a rewarding experience for sure. Obviously, I'm grateful to do any sort of exhibitions and anyone who sees it. It's just always that feeling of like everyone in here physically around me, you know? Yeah, it's weird. I would use the small town Facebook group thing and just offer them photos in return. Yeah, that's the other thing too when you're doing these assignments or doing the portraits of people. Like, offer to give them photos, offer to give them a print. That would be even better. Yeah. At this point, I'm going to force myself to do a stranger portrait regardless of what assignment wins. There we go. Jack continuing to one up all of us. I love it. Stranger portrait with my own shadow in it. Now that's actual bonus points. Now we're really talking bonus points here. All right. That's going to do it for this week's stream. I appreciate all of you joining me here. This was a good conversation. I hope you enjoyed Skin and Grove that we looked at the top of the stream. If you missed that one, check out the replay. It's a great book. Really good stuff. So we'll be back here again next Sunday. Not here, most likely. We're going to be over at AJ's, the House of Masks, and we'll do a little live instant film photo shoot over there and maybe show off his museum of a house that he lives in while we're at it. So appreciate y'all. Hope you all have a good rest of the week. Channel members, I'll see you over on the Discord. Love you all. See you guys next week.